friends. Chris Kelly here. End of the week, Halloween, and time to look at stats before I call it a day and go help younger people collect candy. Anyway, all right, let's dive in and take a look. There is an interesting nugget in here. Let me minimize me here. There we go. So, I went back and looked at the last 5-6 weeks actually of these documents, these graphics that we put out each week. And as I said, this is a 1 week, it's a 1 week snippet, right? This says, hey, in this week, this is what happened. There's so many new listings, and it's tri-county. So, Clackamas, Multnomah, Washington County, and it's residential. I don't include commercial. I don't include multifamily. That kind of thing. So, if you see other data that differs, it's because it's collecting a larger pool of data. And I'm really focused for our purposes on the residential side of things. Certainly, if you have a commercial land, multifamily type situation or question or concern, I can look into that just as easily. But I say that for a reason. Now, like I said, I went back over the last few weeks and I've noticed something interesting. So, for example, pendings, and I'm going to compare this year versus last year, right? So pendings, new listings are fairly similar, a little less. Pending sales are up, not dramatically from this time last year, but they're up a bit. Sold sales are down quite a bit. And I was like, gosh, I seem to remember last week this being the same thing, and maybe the week before. So I'm back like 6 weeks, and almost all of them had a significantly less. If something's 4, 5, 6%, that's not a big deal to me. But you get up into the 15, 20, 25% differences for an extended period of time. That gets my attention. And so, but what I also noticed is that pending sales week over week over week were up from this time last year. What does that mean? Well, to me, it means one thing. That is that the number of failed transactions. So transactions are either failing to close or they're being delayed. And over that period of time, I'm looking at like 6 weeks, that's not likely that there's that many transactions that are delaying and then closing as opposed to failing. And so you've heard me talk here before about sale fail rates, transactions that fail to close being higher around the country. I might suggest that it's gone up because it's been that way now for a couple, 3 years, but I would suggest that it's gotten even worse. And that rate has gotten even higher. And I think it's showing up in those numbers right there. So interesting. It's not the end of the world. I'll show you why here in a bit. I've got some other data to look at. But, pace of the market, it's staying about the same. A month-ish for median days on the market, and 2 months is for average. Again, you get some properties that stay on the market a bunch of months and it screws up the average. That's why we look at both. And really, the relationship between the two is what matters. Not entirely different this time last year. Not entirely different the year before. The average was lower in 23, which means that less stuff was sitting on the market long, screwing up the averages. But look at the median all the way back to 22, 23, 24, 25. That's not a big difference. What is that? 8 days, 9 days, over 3-4 years. So by and large, the pace of the market hasn't dramatically changed. These numbers came down a little bit, not so much as to be concerning. You see them versus last year, they're about the same. And the year before, they're pretty darn close to the same, and so on. So, this, as I said, on a week-over-week basis, this demonstrates flatness at this time of year versus other years. Now, I'm going to pivot to our company, Berkshire Hathaway puts out, puts out their own data. Now, I've shown this, the RMLS Market Action Report comes out once a month. And it's really good data as far as I'm concerned. I think I showed that data last week or the week before. our company puts out a quarterly report. And so this is quarterly data. And there's a couple pages in there that I think are of value, and this is one of them. So, this breaks down the market by areas: Portland, the different parts of Portland, Lake O, Gresham, Troutdale, so on. And you can see that most of the markets, it's actually kind of 50-50, but the actual sales price increase or decrease, it's kind of some of them went one way, some of them went the other. So, when you average all of this together, it shows a pretty flat market. But this will allow you to see, for example, where my office is in Gresham, Troutdale together, the average sales price is lower this year than it was last year this time, through Q3. The time on the market here has increased. The average has increased by 10 days. Now, you see, when I was looking at what we were just looking at, the average days on the market was 60 some days. But by and large, you don't see that here. But you get some markets like Canby where the average is 73, or Tigard, it's 91. And so some of these markets are, look at this one, Yamhill, Carlton, the average is 154 days. That's why, these kind of things screw up the average versus basically Portland's in the 40s and 50s. So this is a nice piece of information. So this one, and there's another one that I found and this is the number of closed units. This is what I wanted to talk about. It's not dramatically different. I mean, it shows up more different than it really is. I mean, look at, for example, Southeast Portland, 685 sales through Q3, or I think this is in Q3 rather. This is not a year to date. It's for the quarter, versus 714. That's not a big difference in sales in that area. Gresham, like I said, where my office is, the difference was 11 properties. So these different. This is really demonstrates a fairly flat rate of sales, just the number of units closed. And I've shown this before through the RMLS. Through the RMLS market action data, it basically says the same thing. And this is just a continuation into Tigard and Sherwood and Sandy, some of the other marketplaces. So good information for somebody who wants to take a little deeper dive into their area or into particular areas. I'm going to leave this. I wanted to show this to you and have it for you. So it's all in all. And by the way, rates. I checked earlier today and with the peeps that I check with, and perfect world rates. I'm going to call it that. That's where somebody's putting 25% down and they got 800 and some credit, and just perfect world loan. You can get money. Money was right under 6, 5.99. Interestingly, I think FHA was down to like 5.25, and VA was 5.75. That's a weird spread between between FHA and VA. Usually they're pretty neck and neck. So, but what does money do if your credit is in the 7s, or if you're not putting 25% down? I think the cost of your loan is going to go up to get a given rate, or you're going to have a higher rate. So how much higher? Depends. If your credit's horrible, then much. But if you're kind of a second tier credit per se, then you might, instead of having a 6% rate, you might have a 6.25 rate. So it's not a gross difference, but it's a difference. That's really kind of the goings on where that is concerned. Let's see here. I think that's about all I got. Oh, of course. I can't go without talking about this. We're 3 weeks away. We're 3 weeks away from Pi Day. It really is fun. We did a video for it last year. Nick, our outstanding videographer friend, did it for us, and so we'll get that out. You may have seen it before. I can't remember if I posted it last year or not, but it's pretty cool. Talks a little bit about what it is, what it's about, why we do it, and why we do it. We do it to say thank you. We do it because we appreciate our relationships. We do it because we run a relational business, and it's our way of expressing gratitude. That's the long and short of it. So for me, this is the only way to run a business. I mean, there's lots of ways to get to the finish line in sales. You can cold call, you can do open house, you can door knock, all the things, or you can take care of people and build deeper relationships and be there for them and go to the mat for them. And that's just the way that I chose to do this business 30 years ago. So these types of events, these types of things that we do throughout the year, are just a way to say thanks. Some people come and partake and some don't. And either way, it's okay. I want my friends, family, clients, relationships to know that I'm here for you and that I care about you. Both things are absolutely true. So if there's something I can be doing, reach out. Let's talk about it. With that, I'm going to go home and figure out a costume and go do some candy things. So anyway, I hope you and yours have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you here on the next time.